Every year, on March 10, Tibetans across the world gather in the streets. These marches have been happening for more than 6 decades. They began after China took control of Tibet in 1959, forcing the 14th Dalai Lama to escape into exile in India, followed by thousands of Tibetans who would never see their homeland again. For Tibetans, March 10 is not just another day on the calendar. It is the day Tibet stood up, and in doing so, we lost our country. The world may not hear our voices very often. Sometimes it feels like our story has faded into the background of global politics. But every year, on this day, Tibetans gather again, not because we expect the world to suddenly change, but because memory matters, and some stories refuse to disappear. By 1959, Tibet was already under Chinese control. Tensions had been building for years, but in March that year, fear spread quickly through the city of Lhasa. Rumors began circulating that the Chinese authorities had invited the Dalai Lama to attend a cultural performance at the nearby military headquarters, but there was one strange condition. He had to come alone. No bodyguards, no Tibetan officials. To many Tibetans, this didn't feel like an invitation. It felt like a trap. So on March 10, thousands of Tibetans gathered outside the Dalai Lama's palace to protect him. Men, women, monks, and ordinary citizens stood shoulder to shoulder around the palace. They raised slogans that echoed through the streets. Long live His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Tibet is an independent country. Chinese leave Tibet. Within days, Lhasa was under artillery fire. The uprising was crushed, and inside the palace, a decision was being made, one that would change Tibetan history forever. On the night of March 17, 1959, the state oracle delivered a message. The Dalai Lama had to leave Tibet immediately. There was no time for ceremony, no public announcement, no farewell. Disguised as a soldier, the Dalai Lama quietly slipped out of Lhasa under the cover of darkness. For the next 2 weeks, he and his entourage crossed the Himalayas, through mountain passes, through uncertainty, not knowing whether India would grant them refuge. Then on March 31st, 1959, he crossed the border into India. Tibet had lost its leader, but the story of exile had just begun. India, led by the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, faced a difficult choice: grant asylum and risk angering China, or refuse and turn away a spiritual leader fleeing danger. India chose humanity. The Dalai Lama was welcomed into the country, and soon thousands of Tibetans refugees began arriving as well. With the aid of international agencies and with the support of the Indian government and the kindness of the Indian people, Tibetan settlements began to take shape. Schools were built, monasteries were rebuilt. A community that has lost its country slowly began rebuilding its life in exile. For Tibetans, India did more than open its borders. It opened its heart, and for that, generations of Tibetans remain deeply grateful. When the Dalai Lama arrived in India, the world finally paid attention. Newspapers carried the story. Images of a Buddhist monk fleeing a communist power fit perfectly into the narrative of the Cold War. At the United Nations, debates were held and resolutions were passed. Concerns were raised, statements were issued, but nothing changed on the ground. Tibet had become something tragic, but not something urgent. And in international politics, urgency often determines whether action is taken. Even the covert support Tibet received from the CIA was never truly about Tibetan freedom. It was about Cold War strategy, and when geopolitical priorities shifted, Tibet slowly faded from the center of global attention. But March 10 did not end in 1959. It continues every year, in protests, in classrooms, in prayers whispered far from the mountains of Tibet. For many Tibetans born in exile, Tibet is a place we know through stories, through our parents, through our grandparents, through memories that were carried across the Himalayas. Now, as I stand in these protests with my son, I realize something. I may not live to see a free Tibet, but this fight will go on forever, and we will never ever give up. As they say, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the fight in the dog that matters. Free Tibet, Pökelo.